The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Zix walked into the room, his 6 legs clicking against the polished floor. The tall alien carried a datapad in one of his forearms, while his large eyes scanned the faces of the other council members already seated around the circular table. "Friends and allies," Zix began, his voice translator making his words sound smooth and calm. "I have news about the new species we discovered 3 months ago, the ones who call themselves humans." The other aliens in the room looked up with mild interest. There were 12 different species represented in the council, each one ruling over dozens of worlds. They had seen many new species over the years, and most turned out to be nothing special. High Commander Veltar, a massive creature with thick armor plates covering his body, leaned forward. "Ah, yes, the little pink ones. From the 3rd planet. What about them?" Zixith tapped his datapad, and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed a blue and green planet floating in space. "This is Earth, their home world. Our scouts have finished their military assessment." The hologram changed to show numbers and charts. Fleet Admiral Quexena, whose species looked like giant squids with metal implants, made a gurgling sound that her translator turned into laughter. "These numbers must be wrong. Are you telling us their entire military force has only 2 million soldiers?" "The numbers are correct," Zixith replied. 2 million soldiers across their entire planet. For comparison, the smallest member of our council has 40 million troops. War Chief Bractos, who looked like a walking tree with eyes, shook his massive head. "This is ridiculous. My personal guard has more soldiers than their entire species can field. How do they even maintain order on their world?" Zixith showed another chart. "They have something called individual nations. These nations sometimes fight each other, but the conflicts are small. Their largest war in recent history involved only a few 100,000 soldiers on each side." The council chamber filled with various sounds of alien amusement. High Commander Veltar's species expressed humor by clicking their claws together, creating a sound like rain on metal. Others made different noises, but the meaning was clear. They all found this information very funny. "What about their weapons?" asked General Vexfer, whose people were known for their advanced military technology. "Do they at least have proper energy weapons or plasma cannons?" "No," Zix answered, pulling up more data. "They still use projectile weapons, small metal pieces fired from tubes using chemical explosions. Very primitive technology. Chemical explosions." Fleet Admiral Quexana made her gurgling laugh again. "What is this, the Stone Age? Do they also fight with clubs and rocks? Their space capability is equally limited," Zix continued. "They have one small station orbiting their planet and a few basic spacecraft. No shields, no faster-than-light weapons, no planetary defense systems worth mentioning." War Chief Bractos leaned back in his chair, which creaked under his weight. "So why are we even discussing them? They sound like children playing war games." "Because," Zix said, his tone becoming more serious, "they have requested to join the galactic community. They want to be part of our alliance." This caused a moment of silence in the chamber. Then High Commander Veltar began clicking his claws again, louder this time. "They want to join us? With their toy army and primitive weapons? This is the best joke I have heard in years." "What did you tell them?" asked General Exfer. "I told them we would consider their request," Zixith replied. "I thought the council should decide how to handle this situation." Fleet Admiral Quexena waved one of her tentacles dismissively. "Give them probationary membership. Let them think they are part of something important while we decide what to do with their world." "Their world does have some interesting resources," noted scientific advisor Morgoth, speaking for the first time during the meeting. His species look like large insects with glowing eyes. The planet has abundant water and several rare minerals. It might be worth keeping them around. War Chief Bractos nodded slowly. "Yes, but we need to test them first. See if they are worthy of even probationary status. We cannot have weaklings in our alliance, even as junior members." "What kind of test?" asked High Commander Veltar. "Simple military evaluation," General Vexfer suggested. Give them a small challenge to see how they handle combat. When they fail, we can justify taking over their world for their own protection. The other council members made various sounds of agreement. This was standard procedure for weak species. They would be given an impossible task, fail completely, and then be absorbed into the galactic community as a subject race. I will arrange for the Krex Dominion to provide opposition, Zixith said. They love testing new species, and they are always looking for easy victories to boost their reputation, High Commander Veltar said. The Krex are strong, but not too strong. They will crush these humans quickly, without making it look like we sent an overwhelming force. How many humans do you think will volunteer for this test? Asked Fleet Admiral Quexina. Zix checked his datapad. Based on their military structure, probably their entire space-capable force, maybe 10,000 soldiers at most. This caused another round of alien laughter. 10,000 soldiers against a Krex assault force was like sending children to fight adult warriors. This will be entertaining to watch, War Chief Bracto said. I have not seen such a one-sided battle in decades. Should we warn them that? This is a serious test? Asked Scientific Advisor Morgeth. It seems cruel to let them walk into certain death without knowing what they face. They will learn, General Dexper replied coldly. All species must learn their place in the galaxy. These humans will discover that their little toy army is not enough to earn respect among real military powers. Zixith made a final note on his datapad. I will send them the formal invitation today. We'll present this as an honor, a chance to prove themselves worthy of joining our great alliance. Make sure to record everything, High Commander, Veltar added. Future species might benefit from seeing what happens when primitive worlds try to play with advanced civilizations. The council meeting continued for another hour, but the discussion of humans was over. They had been classified as a minor curiosity, a weak species that might provide some entertainment before being absorbed into the galactic community as servants. None of the council members bothered to read the detailed reports about human history. They missed the parts about human wars, human strategies, and human refusal to surrender, even when facing impossible odds. They saw only numbers on charts and assumed they understood everything they needed to know. As the meeting ended and the aliens left the chamber, they were all thinking the same thing. Humans with their miniature army would provide a brief moment of amusement. Before learning their proper place in the galaxy, they had no idea how wrong they were. Captain Jake Miller stood in the command center of Terra Station, staring at the message that had arrived from the Galactic Council. The holographic display showed the formal invitation in multiple languages, translated by the alien communication device they had provided. Congratulations, the message read. The Galactic Council has decided to offer humanity probationary membership in our great alliance. This is a rare honor for such a young species. Colonel Lisa Parker walked up beside him, reading over his shoulder. Probationary membership? That sounds like they are treating us like children who need to prove themselves. That is exactly what they are doing, said General Paul Davis, who had been listening from across the room. He was Earth's top military commander, a man who had spent 40 years studying warfare. I have been reading the information they gave us about their military systems. They think war is about who has the biggest army. Dr. Amy Richardson looked up from her computer terminal, where she had been studying alien biology reports. I have been learning about how they treat species they consider weak. It is not good, Paul. They either make them slaves or strip their worlds of all valuable resources. The four humans stood in silence for a moment, thinking about what this meant. Earth had been excited about joining a galactic community, but now it seemed like they had attracted the attention of predators instead of friends. What do we do? Asked Colonel Parker. We cannot fight the entire galaxy. Their technology is hundreds of years ahead of ours. Maybe we cannot match their technology, General Davis said slowly, but that does not mean they are better at fighting wars. I have been studying their battle records. They're strong, but they're also predictable. Captain Miller pulled up the military data on his screen. Look at this. Every battle they fight follows the same pattern. They gather huge armies, meet in open space, and whoever has more ships wins. They do not seem to know anything about strategy or tactics. That is because they do not need to, Dr. Richardson explained. Most alien species evolved on peaceful worlds. They never had to develop complex warfare like humans did. When they fight, it is just about showing who is stronger. General Davis walked over to the main display and began pulling up Earth's military history. We have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know about guerrilla warfare, ambush tactics, psychological operations, and fighting when outnumbered. These aliens have never faced anything like that. Over the next 6 months, humanity played their role perfectly. They acted grateful for the alien invitation and appeared eager to prove themselves worthy of membership. Captain Miller and his team attended virtual meetings with alien officials, always seeming slightly nervous and overwhelmed by the advanced technology around them. Meanwhile, Commander Steve Johnson was secretly leading reconnaissance missions. His job was to gather intelligence about alien military capabilities without being detected. What he discovered was both encouraging and frightening. Their weapons are incredibly powerful, he reported to General Davis during a classified briefing. But they are also predictable. They rely completely on energy shields and assume their enemies will do the same. They have no experience fighting opponents who use different tactics. Lieutenant Colonel Kate Morrison had been busy establishing new training programs for selected military units. Instead of trying to match alien firepower, she focused on human advantages. Humans were better at surviving in harsh conditions, thinking creatively under pressure, and working together in small teams. We are training soldiers to fight like humans, not like aliens, she explained to her officers. We will use stealth instead of shields, mobility instead of heavy armor, and intelligence instead of brute force. The aliens continued to view humanity. With amusement, Ambassador Veltar visited Earth and toured several military bases. He walked through the facilities with barely hidden contempt, making comments about primitive human weapons and weak human bodies. Your soldiers do not even have cybernetic enhancements, he told General Davis during the tour. How do they communicate in battle without direct neural links? We use radios and hand signals, Davis replied simply. Veltar made a sound that his translator turned into laughter. Radios, how wonderfully ancient. No wonder your military operations are so limited in scope. What Veltar did not know was that Major Ben Wilson and his engineering team were listening to every conversation through hidden devices. They were learning about alien technology, while the aliens learned nothing useful about human capabilities. Major Wilson had been working on new equipment designed specifically to counter alien advantages. Rather than building bigger weapons, his team focused on electronic warfare systems, stealth technology, and devices that could disrupt alien shields and communications. If we cannot match their firepower, we will make their firepower useless, he told his team. Every alien advantage can become a weakness if we approach it correctly. Intelligence officer Sandra Lee made the most important discovery of all. While monitoring alien communications, she learned about the real purpose of humanity's probationary membership. The Galactic Council was planning to test human military capabilities through combat trials. They are going to make us fight, she reported to General Davis. 3 hostile alien species have been selected to evaluate our worthiness: the Krex Dominion, Sulfurian Raiders, and Void Hunters. They expect us to lose quickly and completely. Richardson had been studying these species extensively. The Krex are the most dangerous, she said. They are natural warriors with thick armor and powerful weapons. But they are also arrogant and used to winning through intimidation. What about their weaknesses? Asked General Davis. They evolved on a high-gravity world with dangerous predators, Richardson explained. This made them strong and aggressive, but also inflexible. They cannot adapt quickly when their standard tactics fail. General Davis looked at the information for a long time. So they are planning to test us by making us fight species that are bigger, stronger, and better armed than we are. Yes, Sandra, Lee confirmed. And they expect us to request massive reinforcements and advanced weapons. When we cannot match alien military standards, they will justify taking over our world for our own protection. How long do we have? Asked Colonel Parker. The first test will be announced within a month, Lee replied. They'll probably start with the Krex, since they are considered the most reliable for producing quick victories. 8. General Davis was quiet for several minutes, thinking. Finally, he looked up at his officers. Good, let them send the Kreks. We have been preparing for exactly this kind of fight. Sir? Captain Miller looked confused. How can 200,000 human soldiers fight millions of alien warriors? We cannot, Davis replied with a slight smile. But we do not need to fight millions of them. We only need to fight them better than they expect. The aliens think this will be a simple test of strength. They have no idea they are about to learn what human warfare really looks like. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth was about to face its first galactic military test, and the aliens expected humanity to fail quickly and quietly. Instead, they were going to discover that their miniature army's joke had a very dangerous punchline. Dr. Richardson looked at the data on her screen showing alien military doctrine. They have never fought an enemy that refuses to play by their rules. This should be very educational for them. Yes, General Davis agreed. I think the galaxy is about to learn something new about warfare and about humanity. The announcement came exactly 1 month later, just as Intelligence Officer Sandra Lee had predicted. Admiral Eric Thompson stood before the assembled human delegation in the council chamber. While alien representatives watched from their elevated seats, humanity declared High Admiral Dexfer, his voice echoing through the massive room. The time has come for your first evaluation. You will demonstrate your worthiness to join our alliance through combat. The human delegation exchanged nervous glances, exactly as they had practiced. Admiral Thompson stepped forward, his voice slightly shaky. We are honored by this opportunity. What will be required of us? Ambassador Zix activated a holographic display showing a distant planet. This is Kepler 44 to be a remote colony world. You will defend it against a Krex assault force. Consider this a learning experience. War Chief Bractos leaned forward, his tree-like body creaking. The Krex Dominion has graciously agreed to provide opposition for your test. They are sending a modest force of 50,000 warriors. Admiral Thompson's face went pale. 50,000. How many troops are we allowed to use in our defense? As many as you wish, High Admiral Dexfer replied with what sounded like generosity. We understand that your entire military might be needed for such a challenge. The aliens waited for the humans to request massive reinforcements, advanced weapons, and orbital support. Instead, Admiral Thompson surprised them all. We would like to send Captain Dan Rogers with a force of 200 soldiers. Complete silence filled the chamber. Fleet Admiral Quaxano was the first to speak, her tentacles waving in confusion. Did you say 200? Against 50,000 Krex warriors? Yes, Admiral Thompson replied, trying to look brave despite his obvious fear. We believe our soldiers can handle this challenge. The aliens looked at each other in amazement. Even they had not expected humans to be this foolish. Hi, Admiral. Dexfer made a sound that his translator turned into barely controlled laughter. Very well, he said. 200 human soldiers against 50,000 Krex. This should be ... educational. Within hours, the galactic news networks were reporting the story. Betting pools opened across dozens of worlds, with odds heavily favoring complete human destruction within the first few hours. Some aliens were taking bets on whether any humans would survive long enough to surrender. Hi, Admiral. Dexfer set up monitoring stations around Kepler 44 to record the battle. This will be useful footage for future species, he told his staff. They can see what happens when primitive worlds try to fight real military powers. The Krex Dominion fleet arrived at the planet 3 days later, where Chief Krax commanded. The assault force from his massive battleship, surrounded by transport vessels carrying his army. Each Krex warrior stood 8 feet tall, with thick natural armor and weapons that could punch through steel. This is going to be the easiest victory of my career, Grax told his officers as they prepared for landing. 200 little pink creatures against the might of the Dominion. We will be finished before lunch. The Krex forces began their landing operations with overwhelming confidence. 50,000 warriors in full battle armor descended on the planet's surface, their weapons charged and ready. Their sensors detected the human presence immediately. A small defensive position near the main settlement. Captain Rogers watched the alien landing from his hidden command post. The Krex had done exactly what human intelligence predicted they would do. They had landed in the most obvious location, grouped their forces together, and assumed their enemies would meet them in direct combat. All teams, this is Rogers. He spoke quietly into his radio. The fish have taken the bait. Begin Phase 1. The 200 humans with Rogers were not ordinary soldiers. They were special operations veterans, each one trained for exactly this type of mission. Sergeant First Class Tim Clark led the demolition team. Master Sergeant Kevin Brown commanded the infiltration unit, and Captain Lisa Hayes ran psychological. Operations: the Krex scouts advanced toward the human defensive position, expecting to find frightened soldiers hiding behind primitive barriers. Instead, they found empty trenches and abandoned equipment. The humans had vanished. Where are they? War Chief Grax demanded over the radio. 50,000 warriors do not simply lose track of 200 enemies. The answer came 30 minutes later, when explosions rocked the Krex landing zone. Sergeant Clark's team had planted charges throughout the area during the night, turning the aliens' own landing site into a death trap. Transport ships exploded, supply depots burned, and communication arrays went dark, while the Krex forces struggled to understand what had happened. Master Sergeant Brown's infiltration team was already moving through their ranks. The humans had studied Krex psychology extensively and knew exactly how to exploit their weaknesses. Target the officers first, Brown whispered to his team. Take out their command structure, and they will panic. The Krex warriors were used to facing enemies who fought with honor, meeting them in open battle with matching forces. They had never encountered an opponent who struck from the shadows, disappeared before they could respond, and attacked their weaknesses instead of their strengths. Captain Hayes began her psychological warfare campaign, broadcasting messages in the Krex language that played on their cultural fears. The Krex believed that warriors who died without seeing their enemy's face could not enter their afterlife. Being killed by invisible opponents was their greatest nightmare. You cannot fight what you cannot see. Hayes' voice echoed across the battlefield. Your warriors are dying to ghosts. How many of your people will die before you admit defeat? War Chief Grax tried to rally his forces, but the situation was spiraling out of control. His communication systems were being jammed, supply lines were under constant attack, and his warriors were beginning to panic. This was nothing like the glorious battle he had expected. Spread out, he ordered. Search every rock, every tree, every shadow. Find these humans and crush them. But the humans were already gone, moved to new positions, while the Krex were still organizing their search. Captain Rogers had spent months studying the terrain of Kepler-4 for to be, identifying every hiding spot, every escape route, and every tactical advantage the planet offered the Galactic Council observers. Watched in growing confusion as their monitoring stations reported increasingly desperate messages from the Krex forces. High Admiral Vexfer stared at the displays, unable to understand what he was seeing. This is impossible, he muttered. 200 primitives cannot defeat 50,000 Krex warriors. There must be some mistake. There was no mistake. The humans were doing exactly what they had trained for, fighting a superior enemy using tactics that the aliens had never encountered. They were turning the Krex strength against them, using their large numbers and rigid tactics as weaknesses, instead of advantages. By the end of the first day, the Krex had lost over 5,000 warriors without killing a single human. War Chief Grax found himself commanding a demoralized army that jumped at shadows and saw enemies in every corner. Request immediate reinforcement. He signaled to the Dominion homeworld. The situation here is ... unusual. We need additional forces to deal with these humans. The message reached the Galactic Council within hours. High Admiral Vexfer read it 3 times before believing what it said. The mighty Krex Dominion, terror of a dozen worlds, was requesting help to defeat 200 human soldiers. The elite guard, he ordered. 10,000 of their finest warriors with the most advanced weapons. This embarrassment must end immediately. But as the reinforcements prepared to launch, the council members were beginning to realize that their understanding of human military capabilities might have been seriously flawed. The joke about humanity's miniature army was starting to look like something else entirely, something dangerous. The Krex Elite Guard arrived at Kepler-4 for to be with great fanfare. 10,000 of the Dominion's finest warriors, equipped with the most advanced weapons and armor available. War Chief Grax watched their landing with relief, convinced that these superior forces would finally crush the mysterious human resistance. These are not ordinary Krex soldiers, he explained to Elite Commander Vexka, who led the reinforcements. These humans fight like nothing we have ever encountered. They appear and disappear like spirits, striking where we least expect them. Elite Commander Vexka examined the reports with growing irritation. His species prided themselves on being the galaxy's premier warriors, and the idea that primitive humans could challenge them was insulting. You have been defeated by 200 creatures with chemical weapons. This is embarrassing. Do not underestimate them, Grax warned. They have destroyed our communication systems, eliminated our supply lines, killed thousands of our warriors without losing a single soldier of their own. Vexka dismissed the warning with a wave of his clawed hand. You were using standard assault tactics against an unknown enemy. I will employ proper elite protocols. These humans will learn what real warfare looks like. Captain Dan Rogers watched the new alien forces from his hidden observation post. The elite Krex were different. From the first wave, smaller units, better coordination, advanced sensors designed to detect stealth technology. They were adapting to human tactics, which made them more dangerous. All teams, be advised. Rogers spoke quietly into his radio. The new arrivals are smarter than the first group. They are using counter-guerrilla tactics and improved detection. Equipment. We need to adjust our approach. Master Sergeant Kevin Brown studied the elite forces through his scope. They are spreading out, using overlapping sensor fields and maintaining constant communication. These guys actually know what they are doing. For the first time since the battle began, the humans faced a real challenge. The elite Krex moved carefully, checked every hiding spot, and responded quickly to attacks. When Sergeant Tim Clark's demolition team tried to sabotage their supply depot, they were detected and forced to retreat under heavy fire. We lost the element of surprise, Clark reported. They were waiting for us with detection devices we have never seen before. Battle entered a new phase as both sides adapted to their enemy's tactics. The elite Krex used their advanced technology to counter human stealth advantages, while the humans relied on their superior knowledge of the terrain and creative problem-solving. Captain, Lisa Hayes found that her psychological warfare was less effective against the elite forces. They have better mental discipline than the regular troops, she reported. The fear tactics that worked before are not having the same impact. But the prolonged conflict had given the humans time to study captured Krex technology. Colonel Rachel Ward, who had arrived with a small engineering team, was busy adapting alien equipment to human needs. Look at this. She showed Rogers a modified Krex energy weapon. I figured out how to override their weapon safeties. Now we can use their own guns against them, but with twice the power output. Will it work? Rogers asked. Only one way to find out, Ward replied with a grin. But I think these aliens are about to learn that humans are very good at taking things apart and putting them back together in new ways. The turning point came when the humans revealed something the aliens had not expected. Throughout the entire battle, Captain Rogers had been in constant communication with Earth. What the Galactic Council thought was an isolated test had actually been a galaxy-wide intelligence gathering operation. Command, this is Rogers. He spoke into his long-range communicator. We have tested enemy capabilities extensively. Request permission to proceed to Phase 2. General Paul Davis responded from Terra Station, 30 light-years away. Granted, Captain. Show them what human engineering can accomplish. The humans began using tactics that combined their natural ingenuity with stolen alien technology. Sergeant Clark's team deployed modified Krex explosives that were 10 times more powerful than the originals. Master Sergeant Brown's infiltration unit used captured alien stealth suits that had been improved with human electronics. Elite. Commander Vexka found himself fighting an enemy that seemed to be getting stronger instead of weaker. The humans were using Krex weapons better than the Krex themselves, turning captured technology into devastating new tools of war. How are they doing this? He demanded of his technical officers. Those are our weapons, our systems. They should not be able to operate them, much less improve them. The humans appear to have exceptional technical abilities, his chief engineer reported nervously. They are modifying our equipment in ways we never considered possible. The situation became critical when Captain Tony Martinez led a strike, teamed directly into the Krex command center, using captured alien technology and human tactics. His small force infiltrated the heavily defended position and seized control of the enemy communication systems. "This is the human forces," Martinez broadcast on all Krex frequencies. "Your command structure has been compromised. Your weapon systems are under our control. Your supply lines have been cut. You have 1 hour to surrender before we demonstrate." What happens when humans stop holding back? War Chief Grax stared at his command displays in disbelief. Somehow, impossibly, 200 human soldiers had defeated over 60,000 Krex warriors. His forces were scattered, demoralized, and effectively neutralized by an enemy they still barely understood. Elite. Commander Vexka made one final attempt to salvage the situation. All units fall back to secondary positions. We will regroup and launch a coordinated assault on the human base. But there was no human base to assault. The 200 soldiers had been operating from hidden positions scattered across the planet, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. When the Krex finally located what they thought was the main human camp, they found only empty tents and equipment designed to fool their sensors. "Where are they?" Vexka shouted in frustration. An entire army cannot simply disappear. The answer came from Captain Rogers himself, who appeared on the main Krex communication channel. "We are everywhere and nowhere, Commander. We're behind your lines and your systems and inside your decision-making process. You have been fighting human warfare, and you never understood what that meant." The final blow came when the humans activated their captured alien technology in ways the Krex had never imagined. Their own weapons turned against them, their communication systems began broadcasting human propaganda. Their transport ships found themselves locked down by their own security protocols. The Galactic Council, observers watched in stunned silence as the impossible became reality. The mighty Krex, Dominion, conqueror of dozens of worlds, was surrendering to 200 human soldiers armed with primitive weapons and superior tactics. "Hi, Admiral." Vexfer stared at the surrender message for several minutes before accepting that it was real. "This is impossible," he whispered. "How did this happen?" Ambassador Zixt was studying the battle reports with growing alarm. "We assumed that military strength was measured by numbers and technology. These humans have demonstrated that warfare is something completely different." Fleet Admiral Quexana's tentacles were trembling as she spoke. If 200 humans can defeat 60,000 Krex warriors, what could their entire military force accomplish? The question hung in the air like a threat. Every alien in the council chamber was thinking the same thing. They had invited humanity to join their alliance as a joke, expecting to easily dominate a weak species with a miniature army. Instead, they had discovered that Earth's miniature army was not weak at all. It was something far more dangerous. It was efficient, creative, and utterly unpredictable. The humans had just demonstrated that they could take the galaxy's most advanced military technology and use it better than its creators. The joke was over, and the punchline was terrifying. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of the Krex surrender. Every member species sent their highest-ranking representatives, and the usually calm chamber buzzed with nervous energy. The impossible had happened, and no one knew what it meant for the future of galactic politics. High Admiral Dexfer stood before the assembled aliens, his usual confidence replaced by obvious concern. "The evaluation of human military capabilities has concluded with ... unexpected results. War Chief Grax and Elite Commander Vexka have both formally surrendered their forces to Captain Don Rogers of Earth." Fleet Admiral Quexana waved her tentacles. "In agitation? How do we explain this to our people? The Krex Dominion has never been defeated by such a small force. Our entire understanding of military power has been proven wrong." Ambassador Zixith activated the holographic display showing the battle statistics. 200 human soldiers defeated 60,000 Krex warriors, captured advanced alien technology, and demonstrated tactical capabilities we have never encountered before. War Chief Braktos leaned forward, his massive tree-like form creaking. With the movement, What troubles me most is that they were holding back. The human captains said they would demonstrate what happens when humans stop restraining themselves. That means everything we witnessed was them being gentle. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The devastating defeat of the Krex represented humans being careful. What would happen if they decided to fight seriously? Scientific advisor Morgith spoke quietly from his position near the back of the room. I have been analyzing the human battle tactics. They use principles we never considered: deception, misdirection, psychological manipulation, and technological adaptation. Their approach to warfare is fundamentally different from ours. General Vexfer pulled up the communication logs from the battle. They were in contact with their homeworld throughout the entire engagement. This was not an isolated test. It was a comprehensive intelligence gathering operation about our military capabilities. Admiral Eric Thompson entered the DSC council chamber with his human delegation, but the atmosphere was completely different from their previous visits. The aliens no longer looked at humans with amusement or condescension. Instead, there was fear, respect, and uncertainty in their alien features. Honorable council members, Thompson began, his voice calm and confident. We have completed the evaluation you requested. We hope our performance was satisfactory. Hi, Admiral Dexver struggled to find the right words. Your performance exceeded all expectations. We had not anticipated such effectiveness from your forces. We appreciate your confidence in our abilities, Thompson replied smoothly. Of course, what you witnessed on Kepler 442b was just a small demonstration. Captain Rogers and his team represent only a tiny fraction of Earth's military capabilities. The aliens exchanged nervous glances. If 200 human soldiers could defeat 60,000 Krex warriors, what could Earth's full military force of 2 million accomplish? Ambassador Zixith decided to ask the question everyone was thinking. How much of your true military strength do we observe during this test? Thompson appeared to consider the question carefully. Perhaps 1%. Captain Rogers was specifically instructed to use minimal force and avoid any actions that might be considered aggressive. We wanted to demonstrate our defensive capabilities without alarming our new galactic neighbors. War Chief Broctos made a sound that his translator turned into a gulp of fear. 1%. You defeated the Krex Dominion using 1% of your capabilities? Less than that, actually, Thompson corrected gently. The 200 soldiers were operating under strict rules of engagement. They were not allowed to use our more advanced tactical systems, employ our standard battlefield doctrines, or access our full technological capabilities. Fleet Admiral Quexina's tentacles were shaking visibly. What do you mean by more advanced tactical systems? Well, Thompson said, seeming almost embarrassed. Captain Rogers had to rely primarily on captured Krex equipment, our own weapons, and technology are designed specifically for human warfare principles. They would have made the evaluation much shorter and less educational for everyone involved. The council chamber was silent, except for the various sounds of alien breathing and the hum of the life support systems. Every species representative was trying to process the terrifying implications of what they had just learned. General Vexfer finally managed to speak. Are you saying that your soldiers were using inferior equipment during the battle? Not inferior, Thompson clarified. Simply different. Krex technology is impressive, but it is designed for their style of warfare. Human technology is optimized for human tactics, which, as you have seen, operate on different principles entirely. Scientific advisor Morgith raised one of his insect-like arms. What would have happened if your soldiers had used human equipment in standard tactics? Thompson looked uncomfortable with the question. Prefer not to speculate about hypothetical scenarios. Our goal was to demonstrate that humanity can contribute meaningfully to galactic security, not to intimidate anyone. But his reluctance to answer was more frightening than any boastful response would have been. The aliens were beginning to understand that they had badly misjudged not just human military capabilities, but the entire nature of human civilization. Admiral Vexfer made a decision that would change galactic politics forever. The Galactic Council wishes to formally welcome humanity as a full member of our alliance, with all rights and privileges. Your probationary status is hereby terminated. That is very generous, Thompson replied. However, we should discuss the terms of our membership. Earth has some concerns about the treatment of other species in the galactic community. Ambassador. Zixith felt a chill run through his exoskeleton.
What kind of concerns?
We've observed that some species are treated as subject races rather than equals, Thompson said calmly. Earth would like to propose some changes to galactic policy.
Regarding the rights of smaller civilizations, the statement was delivered politely, but every alien in the room understood the underlying message. Humanity was not asking for these changes. They were demanding them. The species with the miniature army that had just crushed the Krex Dominion was now setting conditions for galactic membership. War Chief Bractos was the first to agree. The humans make reasonable points. Perhaps it is time to review our policies toward developing species. Fleet Admiral Quexina nodded rapidly, her tentacles still trembling. Yes, absolutely. We should definitely consider reforms to ensure fair treatment for all members of the galactic community. Over the next several hours, the Galactic Council found themselves agreeing to every suggestion humanity made. Protection for weaker species, limits on resource extraction from developing worlds, and new protocols for first contact with primitive civilizations as the meeting concluded. Thompson stood to address the Council one final time. We look forward to working with all of you to build a better galactic community. Earth believes that true strength comes from cooperation and mutual respect, not from domination of the weak. After the human delegation left, the council chamber remained silent. For a long time, finally, High Admiral Dexfer spoke what everyone was thinking. We invited them to join us as a curiosity, expecting to easily control a primitive species with a tiny military. Instead, we have given membership to the most dangerous civilization in the galaxy. Ambassador Zixith stared at the door where the humans had exited. The joke about their miniature army has become our worst nightmare. They do not conquer through overwhelming force. They win by being smarter, more adaptable, and more creative than anyone else. Scientific advisor Morgoth was reviewing the battle data one more time. What terrifies me most is that they are still holding back. Even now, after demonstrating their capabilities, they continue to restrain themselves. We have no idea what humans are truly capable of when they decide to fight without limits. The Galactic Council had learned a valuable lesson about judging others by their own standards. Humanity's miniature army was not a weakness. It was a precision instrument capable of accomplishing more with fewer resources than anyone had thought possible. The galaxy would never be the same again. And every species now knew that Earth's quiet humans were the most dangerous neighbors they could ever have. The joke was over, and the punchline had rewritten the balance of power among the stars.